Dream Team initial concept presentation. We are so excited to have you all here today and our amazing Dream Team members and also our Field Ready panelists. We're going to start with a brief introduction. My name is Magenta Strongheart. I'm the head of design and partnerships for SupplyFrame's Design Lab. For those of you who are unfamiliar, SupplyFrame, it's the parent company of Hackaday, Design Lab, and Tindy. Design Lab is our 4,000 square foot design and fabrication facility right outside of Los Angeles, California. We're so excited to tell you more about the Dream Team program. This is the first time we're doing this for the 2020 Hackaday Prize. We essentially recruited top talent for our nonprofit partners, so to help them solve one of their challenges during a 2-month engineering sprint. So we're going to tell you more about the innovators we've selected, the Field Ready Dream Team, and the challenge that they are participating in over the last few weeks and will be for the next 2 months. But before we get too far into that, I want to introduce our panelists we have joining us today: Andrew Lamb, Global Innovation Lead for Field Ready, and Kat Hebson, an engineer for Field Ready. They've been so incredibly generous with their time, mentoring our Dream Team members and really giving feedback and giving them more information on the challenge as we go. And I also want to give a huge thank you, of course, to our sponsors who have made this all possible this year: SupplyFrame, DigiKey, Microchip, and ARM. Without them, none of this would be possible. And without further ado, I'd like to pass it off to Giovanni Salinas, our product development engineer, who has been project managing our Dream Teams for the last few weeks. He's going to give you a little more context on this specific Field Ready Dream Team challenge and then introduce you all to our Dream Team members.
Thank you, Magenta. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy to be here today for the first abstract and concept review for the Dream Team Challenge. The Field Ready team includes Misha in Jaipur, India, Tom in London, England, and Antonio in Chiapas, Mexico. Hi, guys, and it's great to see you here. So the Field Ready challenge asks the team to design a means of quality control that remotely tracks and evaluates solutions, protects consumers, and provides a roadmap for reporting and repair. In other words, we are designing not only a physical solution, but a system that will allow Field Ready and all the stakeholders track the products that are manufactured and eventually deployed in areas where quality control is a challenge, such as war-torn regions or natural disaster zones. During this first 3 weeks, the team has done a lot of research in the field and started brainstorming potential systems. So the idea of today's meeting with Andrew and Catherine is to present the results of this research and start discussing our first ideas. Andrew and Catherine, we can't thank you enough for being here today, and we're looking forward to hearing your feedback. So without further ado, I'll pass it on to the team.
Giovanni, thank you for that introduction. I'm going to dive straight into the presentation, and this is our abstract design report. So the very first thing that we did when we came to this challenge was identify the brief that we'd been given and really bring it back to the core of what we were working on. And after extensive thought and communication with the Field Ready team, we developed this "How might we" statement. So we are asking ourselves, how might we create solutions to evaluate and improve product quality within Field Ready? But this is still relatively broad, so we broke it down into 3 further subsections. First, how do we build a culture of documentation, testing, and quality assurance within Field Ready to ensure that all of their products come out extremely high quality and to make sure that consumers can trust the products that they receive from Field Ready? Secondly, how do we build new methods and mechanisms for Field Ready to receive user feedback? For example, if you're a user in the field using a Field Ready product and it fails, or if it works really well and you need a replacement and you need further products, how exactly do you go about doing that? So we've explored different ways of facilitating the communication between Field Ready and their users. And thirdly, we wanted to back up these first two sections with a robust labeling system. And this is really a process of experimentation for us because Field Ready has a very diverse array of products, as you'll see later. And so the solutions that we explore need to be as diverse as their product catalog. So next up, we evaluated the requirements for our solution. Now, this was done in part by analyzing Field Ready's research and website, but also through conversations with Field Ready employees, including Kat and Andrew, who were very kind to give us their time. So we came up with the following list of requirements. First and foremost, whatever solution we develop, it needs to be simple, because a solution which isn't simple won't become adopted, and there's no value in producing a solution which doesn't get used. So above all else, we needed to make sure that whatever we created was simple. Next up, it needed to be affordable. Field Ready produced a large number of products, and it's important that whatever solution we create is applicable to all of them, including the extremely low cost 3D printed or injection molded single-use parts, as well as slightly higher cost larger products like latrines. Thirdly, as I mentioned, Field Ready's products come in all shapes and sizes, and we needed to make sure that the solution would work from anything from like a 3D printed clamp this big to, as I said, like a latrine. We also need to make sure that the solutions were material agnostic, because Field Ready design and build products with a wide variety of materials, including concrete, plastics, wood, and others. We needed to make sure that it was language free, because Field Ready's end users exist in a wide variety of different locales, and we can't depend upon all of them using the same language. We also needed to make sure that it didn't increase manufacturing time, because Field Ready's manufacturing time determines how many products they can manufacture and how many end users they can support in the field. And finally, it needed to support robust inspection and validation and verification of their products. So with all of those in mind, we developed these 4 goals. We needed to ensure coherent product documentation, consistent product validation. We needed to make sure that the information and interfaces that we developed were user-centered and really built with the user in mind. And we needed to create and maintain a culture of testing and risk assessment to ensure consumer protection. I'll just end now with the project timeline. So we spent the first 2 weeks researching our project, and right now we're in the middle of the concept development phase. We'll take the feedback from this presentation forward for a couple of days and refine the concepts, which we'll show you later. And then we'll go into a design and engineering sprint before conducting a mid-process test. Again, reevaluating based on the results of that test, and then going back into the design phase and conducting a final test in weeks 9 and 10. Cool. Over to you, Antonio.
Thank you, Tom. Hello, everyone. This is Antonio from Mexico. Well, I will explain our methods of research. And just to simplify these processes, we know that all the activities in Field Ready are about humans interacting with digital information and physical objects. And then by that, we are trying to understand what's the information flow in the Field Ready organization. And this is like a first side of that mapping of the information and objects with the different personas or users involved in their processes. And the first stage we identify is the design and upload process that Field Ready makes. And the second one is probably how the client requires a specific design for a specific location. And then how this order it's goes from field ready to the manufacturer, and yeah, and then we need to also know how the manufacturer interacts with the requirements, all the information that they need to use in order to produce the expected product. And then we also have to know how the manufacturer delivers these products to the client or the end users in some other scenarios. And if this is the case that there is a partner NGO and they are the ones that deliver this or distribute these products to the end users, we need to also make sure to map these processes. And yes, then another important point we need to understand is how the product ends of its life. Like what happens after the product is used. And yes. So in this process, we identified some personas, and as this is a user-centered research process, and we try to synthesize all the people that is involved in their industry stakeholders. And by the way, this is for the rapid response scenarios that actually is the unique process that Field really has as an NGO in their activities. So we need to understand what the behavior of every one of these personas in order to offer a tailored, not only the interfaces, but a tailored way to interact with information and products. And we know we need to get feedback from the end user. So we need to understand how the end user interacts in his daily life in order to offer something that is easy to transition. And in the case of the partner or the client, we understand that they are investing in some resources to help Feel Ready to make all these products and deliver the aid to these different locations. So the partner or the client will need to know what's going on with their resources, and just to be sure that everything is going fine and the quality is achieved. So we have in consideration of our design this client persona. And field research engineers, we understand that they need to have fast tools in order to help them to respond appropriately to every situation they have. Next one, please. Yeah, and we also identified these other personas in the long-term scenarios. And we know Field Ready works in different locations. And when they have these long-term projects, what they do is they establish maker spaces or fab labs, and they train local people to produce some of their solutions. And some of these locations are like really following a type of establishment like a maker space or a fab lab. And we understand people there are different from the other type of location where, like the ones they use to contact local manufacturers. We use more traditional types of manufacturing processes, and we need to understand these personas differently in order to offer something that is intended to help them in the process of documentation and also testing, and also in their processes of manufacturing in order to facilitate a way to help them also to achieve quality in their products, or expect or to achieve the expected quality of their products. Next one, please. So we made this research with online information, and as Tom mentioned, we have long meetups with Catherine and Andrew, and some of this information is really valuable, but we still need to know the perception of more people inside the organization, and they also from people who is taking place in some of their process, like the local manufacturers, the person that deliver the products, and also the end users. So for that, we made this survey to gather information from their locations, and we are still in the process of getting the information and distributing this survey. So for now, we still have our hypothesis and all the research of work. Next one, please. And we know this is about quality assurance. So we were researching how quality assurance is certified, and we know that there is some important organizations around the world that work making these standards. But the one we are using is the ISO standard, the 9001, which is a worldwide use for quality assurance. And we also taking in consideration some other ISO standards that like this one for labeling. And just to end with this, we understand that this is the main thing to resolve quality assurance, but we need to prepare first all the organization to receive all these standards. Like we need to offer first a more standardized way for communication and to manage information. So this research is about to know how they interact right now, to offer a new way to interact that can be more suitable to receive this new like recommendations by the ISO standards. And I will pass this slide to Misha. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. I'm Misha from India, and I'm having a great time working with my teammates, Tom and Antonio. This is our final stage of presentation where we're gonna basically present our exploration of ideas for abstract concepts, which might serve as solution to the challenge in front of us. So as you know, Tom mentioned before, there are these 3 tasks and 3 abstract concepts we're presenting. First is building a culture of documentation. Second is receiving user feedback in new and innovative ways. And third is experimenting with robust labeling systems. So first, we want to talk about building a culture of documentation, testing, and quality assurance within Field Ready. Our idea is, why don't we rethink the design of testing to increase usability? When I say that, what I'm trying to say is that you have all these testing plans which are all text. So why don't we include more visual and interactive data? To say that, I mean to say we could have checklists, validation processes, maybe some testing modules in video formats, and stuff like that, which would make it much more easier for the local manufacturers and employees to abide by, and also to detect any defects in the product. So for instance, if we're recording a video of a product being made and just uploading it for the local manufacturer, they would know where the defect is coming or if something is not going right, and they could identify it right at that point. So that's what we mean by rethinking the design of testing and making it more visual. Now, if testing is simple, reliable, and fast, why don't we have it both at the manufacturing point and at the delivering point? That is, why don't we build this trust in the end users community when we are deploying this concept of decentralized manufacturing, which FieldReady believes in? So when a user walks in a store, or even when they order a product online, they would always search for defects such as scratches, cracks, or missing parts, or if it's not working right. So we do know there is testing at the manufacturing point, but what if when we're delivering products, the users could actually check the defects right that moment rather than waiting to contact FieldReady later, which might become a problem for them? So what if FieldReady could become an authoritative source of simple tests to do on their products to ensure that users could formalize this existing process? That is, building this trust in the users community that when the product reaches to them, they have access to really detect these defects, or even ask the FieldReady employee or manufacturer what things they should keep in mind when using these products. The second thing is receiving user feedback in a new and innovative way. So what we're thinking about is maybe using WhatsApp or messages to from the end user to FieldReady whenever they have a defect or they need more supply of the product. Here is an example. For instance, there is a defect in the rescue airbag. FieldReady employee would ask you what the serial number is or what your location, basically some important specifications they would need to reach out to you and actually correct the product or fix the product. Now, there can be two cases. If there are low volume of messages, we would resort to human replies. That is a FieldReady employee getting back to them. But if there's medium to high volume of messages from end users, we might as well fuse that with automated bots. So it could be an online chat service on a web app sort of thing, where the end user is communicating their problem to FieldReady, and FieldReady is communicating back to the end user regarding their problem. The third thing is experimenting with robust labeling systems. Now, we're still experimenting and exploring this. We basically divide the FieldReady products into two categories: short-term, rapid response products, and long-term products. So for short-term products, what we were thinking was, what if we have robust barcodes, stuff you see on the airport baggage tags, which are made of highly thermosensitive material and are also pretty non-erasable. And they have some really, really important information on them, such as the location from where it's going, the part numbers or the baggage numbers, which are some things which we might have for FieldReady so that the user knows where the product is coming from, what the part number is, and how can they contact FieldReady. The other idea is to have a label marker. And thanks to Tom for printing that FieldReady one. That's basically their rescue airbag tag. And then we basically tried label marking it. And in that, you basically print out letter one by one. And it's pretty efficient and robust too. For the long term, we have two more ideas. One is 3D printed engraved or embossed text. So when FieldReady is designing products, in the product itself, they can make the FieldReady logo and put down some really specific details of the product, which might be helpful to the manufacturers and the end users, and then print it out. So then they would have the details, the FieldReady logo, and the product all in one. And the other idea is to make metal information plates with the help of recycled aluminum cans. So we're going to use that and then print in information specific to the product. Now, this is where we're combining or exploring to combine everything in one place. So we're combining our documentation, user feedback, and tracking system all in one in an application, a user-friendly application, sort of. So different interfaces would be present for different stakeholders. So when you come on the app, there should probably be a user, a manufacturer, and an FR employee tab, sort of. And whichever icon you click on, you're going to be navigating to a different interface. And the reason why we were thinking about this is because, firstly, it would be very user-friendly. It could be a desktop or a web app or even a mobile application. And by simply clicking on it, a user can go and discover all the product details, the part number, how to contact FieldReady, how to get specifications about any defects or anything they would want to ask to Field Ready. So like a contact service, a messaging service would be included in that. When it comes to the manufacturer, they would have access to all these video testing modules, risk assessment plans. And for the FR employee, there will be this validation checklists and inspection checklists, which would help in basically integrating the labeling and tracking system with quality control and quality assurance. This is our team, and thank you, everyone. That was our presentation. And now I would like to pass it on to Magenta.
Thank you so much to the awesome Field Ready Dream Team for your presentation. Thank you, Tom, Misha, and Antonio, and for the beautiful design as well. I have to give some props to that. Really nice. So I just want to remind our audience members that you can drop any questions that you might have for the Field Ready Dream Team or the Field Ready panelists in the comments on our live, and we'll be sure to integrate those into our 10-minute Q&A at the end of the session today. So we're about 20 minutes in. We've just seen the Field Ready Dream Team presentations for their early concepts, and now we'll move on to about 20 minutes of discussion between our panelists and the Dream Team members. Thanks again for everyone who's just joining. We're really excited to have you here, and thanks to everyone on our panel. I'm excited to hear launch into the discussion. I'll pass it off to Kat and Andrew to get started with any questions, or the Dream Team if they want to initiate any questions here.
Andrew, I'll let you take it away to start.
Well, thank you, Antonio and Misha and Thomas, for your presentation there and for your thinking and work on this. I'm actually finding almost the simplicity of your initial proposal here very compelling. So thank you for it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to me. My first question is sort of around the division of the short term and the long term labeling. Is that a practical? Just a practical consideration, or is there something on the label itself, like some serial numbers will be used more quickly than other serial numbers, or is it a practical consideration because some of the parts that we make will last a lot longer, so they'll need to be made in a different material?
Hi,
it's
Andrew.
as simple as that.
I can field that one, I think. So I think it's more of a practical consideration based on the fact that if, for example, you have a latrine which might be outdoors for 10 plus years, it doesn't make sense to use the same labeling technology for that as it would a single-use disposable set of tweezers or an umbilical cord clamp. And yeah, so I think we're very much still in this experimental phase regarding the labeling, and I think we need to do more testing ourselves to see how well and how robust different labeling solutions work. And based on that, we'll either pick one or maybe two different solutions that we can balance out. Because often the longer term products, like the latrines, would be manufactured in slightly lower volumes than the than the short term single use products. And so it seems appropriate to spend a little bit more time creating a label. So, obviously, if you're going to be like cutting up an aluminium can for every single set of tweezers, we felt that would be unreasonable from a time perspective. Yeah, so it's really about the practicality and the longevity, I think. Does that answer your question?
Absolutely. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure of that. No, it makes sense. Keep it simple in that context. I quite like the proposal you made around one of the labels, which was on the recycling aluminium from the drinks can. That caught my attention. To what extent have you been able to find out about the kind of context that we work in and the facilities available in sort of the refugee camps where we may be making things, and how, what sort of solutions did that close down for you, I guess?
It's a good question. I think what we did, our process for sort of working through at least the labeling solutions was we constructed actually a long list of 12 plus different sorts of labels, ranging from RFID tags to all sorts, and for each of those we had about, I think, 10 different criteria, including the capital expenditure, so like the RFID reader, but also the per item expenditure, as well as the availability of spare parts, the simplicity of the device, the usability and speed, as well as the readability, both computer readability or machine readability, as well as human readability. So all of these ended up in a pretty glorified Excel table, basically with rankings out of 5 for each of them. You know what? I may as well just show you. I mean, we put the work in. So
I'd be interested, because actually, in a lot of innovation processes, it's important to sort of explain the choices you didn't make and why, as much as it is the choices that you did make. And do you want to talk us through this? Thank you.
Sure. So so you can see here we've got all of the solutions down the left-hand side, all of the solutions that we considered, at least, including handheld inkjet printers, all the way down to like the bare bones, just a sticky label and a biro. And along the top, we've got all of the considerations that we took, including, as I mentioned, costs, robustness, like longevity of the solution, machine readability, human readability, availability of spare parts. Now, this actually touches, this column is the one that touches most upon like your point about availability, or like the situations in which you operate and environments which you operate in. Sadly, we haven't had the ability to actually chat to anyone in the field yet, but we're scheduling some meetings for that shortly. So we'll be able to really hone in on this and see whether our assumptions and research really ring true in the field. And then complexity, material diversity, like how many materials does it work with, label, and then customizability. Like, for example, an RFID tag can often be rewritten, whereas that would be very hard to do with a label, save just printing another one and sticking it on top, and then time taken. So you can see that we've set guidelines for what a 5 would be and what a 1. 5 is good, 1 is bad, as it good, bad. And so we were able to evaluate the solutions based on this, and this is what led us to the solutions which we presented. But we didn't just like kind of solely look at the numbers. We used this really as a process to remind ourselves and ask ourselves questions about the solutions and force ourselves to think about the things that we might have forgotten.
Thank you, Misha.
Oh, sorry. I really love this chart, Thomas. It's the first time I'm seeing it. I might have missed it, but I think maybe if you continue working off this chart as your process goes on, an important metric, you asked how complex are the machines involved for making the tags, but I don't see a metric for how portable are the machines involved. I think that's
point. Yeah.
Worth considering, is like, can it be thrown into a duffel bag and go with somebody somewhere?
Adding the criteria now.
I'm not going to fill in the whole table, but a reminder. No, that's a really good point, Kat.
We'll be watching innovation in action there. Misha, and Antonio as well. I mean, your sort of understanding of low resource settings and the in the context that you're living and working in, that you've grown up in. I know that, you know, it's not as extreme a case as a disaster zone or as a refugee camp type situation, but you may have experienced those sorts of settings in your countries at some point with you know, floods and earthquakes and so on. Could you tell me a little bit about how some of your own experiences might have informed your judgment, do you think? Are there particular sort of issues that you had in mind as you were making some of the evaluations on the different potential solutions? Maybe Misha first and then Antonio, please.
I feel like one of the things all of us agreed on was that it's more important for this product to be considered from a very human need, even if it's not extremely innovative or like extremely tech. It should definitely focus on the human need. And the reason why we focus on that is because, as you said, these are disaster zones. Like, especially recently, we had like continuous earthquakes in Delhi, in India. And there's very less you can do, because there are many organizations which would try reaching out to some users, but you can't reach out to a broad set of users. So one thing we had in mind was that what is something we can propose which could reach out to a broad set of users? Because there are people in Haiti, there are people in Vietnam, Iraq, Syria, Jordan. There's like, it's all over the world. People are suffering, and people in refugee camps have access to really, really less things. The reason I know that is that recently I joined this club, and we were basically figuring out how to, like, you know, do remote teaching for them, sort of. And it's all about just like taking that initiative to think from a very user-minded perspective, which is how we arrived to our the messaging service, sort of. Like, no one would think that it's like innovative or like, but it's the simplicity, I feel. Like, the end user can directly just reach out to Feel Ready either through messaging or through an automated bot, and they can get their issue fixed. Simply, like, here we have a lot of web services where like there might be automated bots and you could like get your reply as soon as possible. So that was one of the things I feel. And when there are floods, I feel like there are some people who would like need to reconstruct houses from like A to Z from the base. I think it's the most difficult then, because that's when your material availability, the point you brought up, comes up. And I feel like that is something we really considered while doing our research about Feel Ready. But I feel like to get an in-depth view on it, we would definitely want to interview someone and, you know, get to know more about it. Because right now our spreadsheet is more like based on our research and some conversations. But I think once we get a more in-depth view, we would get to know more about it. But I feel like,
yeah, we'll make that happen. Thank you. Yeah, I think, yeah, we'll make that happen with our field teams. I mean, I think this is something that's really important to us. Antonio, the same question. Was there anything that was sort of from your experience in Mexico that was influencing your decision? That's just one of the appealing things about what Hackaday has done here with this challenge, is that they brought together a global team. So, you know, you each bring different perspectives. I'm interested in yours.
Yes. I have lived some of these situations myself, and I know what is to be in difficult environments with very low resources. And of course, I understand what's the value of the tools that are available to help us to get up and just resolve some of the basic needs we have in these situations. And that's why, and we all three agree on this, we need to focus in the value of the things we are going to deploy, like more than the how technological they are or something else. We need to focus in if the persons there are going to be are going to find value in whatever we are going to deploy there. And if that's the case, how we are going to make these solutions usable, suitable for them. And because we need to understand also that we need to adapt our solutions to different circumstances, not only by the disaster, but by the culture. And every location has their own cultures and their ways to communicate their needs. And some of them will be very shy, like probably they will not answer a survey, or they will not like to be photographed or something in some circumstances. So we need to find a way to get information from their behavior more than really standardized forms to get information. Like we need to be very flexible in those scenarios. And the other
and that's what led to the WhatsApp based user feedback. It was meeting people on their own terms. Yeah. I really like that. Thank you. To be honest with you, I'm not quite sure why I haven't thought about just doing that before, but thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple of more questions, but Catherine, do you want to pick up your questions?
Yeah, sure. I think I have more feedback than questions. So I don't know, you could carry on with your questioning and we can come back to my feedback at the end. No, okay, I'll take it away. Okay, I, similarly to Andrew, really am excited by the aluminum stamping. I know it's early stages and maybe you're not going to take that one to the finish line, but I am excited to see it at this stage. It seems promising. And I think one of the things that seems promising and would be worth considering is what would it take to make a very portable aluminum stamping kit that like every field ready employee could have, and maybe it already maybe in that kit is a lot of like tiny pre-cut tags and those little chains that hook on, or zip ties, or whatever it is. But I could see something that's like a small little thing that people can just take, and then you're not dealing with printers or baggage tag technology. Again, I mean, I'm not trying to make you like converge onto that solution right now, but just wanted to say great work. I'm excited by that. And then I think that could be a fun aspect of this challenge for you too, is to think about, okay, this is a good idea. What does it take for those tags to be made outside of our fab labs in the field? And then I guess I would also just encourage you as you move forward. I'm excited by this app platform too. I also think it leaves a lot of room for growth and change in many different types of labels. Like maybe in 5 years, RFID tags will seem like a better fit. And if the app is a solid platform, it like allows for that sort of movement of field ready. But also, yeah, I would just encourage you to think about what else needs to be in place to make that app successful, because apps don't, it seems like they work without any labor, but like, you know, there might need to be somebody spending more time on the test plan documentation and visualization. Maybe field ready needs to think critically about graphic design talent on staff. Maybe there needs to be somebody who is a skilled programmer to do app maintenance. Maybe what do you expect it's going to take to respond? Just, I'd love to see in your solution, like if you end up going with an app, sketches for the app, early stage prototypes with the app, but maybe also recommendations for like what other steps, maybe even from an HR standpoint, does field ready need to take to like make your solution a success? So, but yeah, I'm really excited by this whole thing, and it's been a pleasure working with you as we go. And then also just research, do apps, is there some app platform that already exists that you could leverage for this, or does this need to be built from the ground up sort of stuff? Yeah, that's all my feedback for right now. I'll send it back to Andrew.
Thank you. That's super valuable, and some really good points there, and definitely stuff that we will take on board. Yeah, it's about thinking about the broader picture than just the app is what the user might see, but behind the scenes there's going to be a whole load of moving parts
Yeah, and that's not a bad thing. I think that's an exciting thing.
Something that needs to be thought about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks. And it's a challenge for everyone. You create an app, and then you have to encourage people to use it for it to be useful, sort of thing. And I think that's there are we can tell you about a number of systems that are being introduced or have been used for a long time in the aid sector that are specifically for sort of refugees, and there's ways that we may be able to integrate some of those. But I think the use of WhatsApp in the first instance will sort of mitigate some of that. Thank you. My question is really about, on the first point about the culture of documentation and quality assurance. I mean, I think that is it's really often very hard, as you may well know from your own personal behavior, that it's quite difficult to incentivize or to be motivated to document your creations in a way, in a level of detail, or even like a coder documenting their software properly in a way that makes it open for other people to replicate. And it's often quite difficult to motivate people to provide feedback, or to feel that they can. It is their right to do so. There's all sorts of power relationships, of course, in humanitarian relief. So my question is, have you thought about ways that you could use this system to perhaps incentivize documentation and incentivize feedback from users? And you don't have to answer right now, but it may be something you could think about in the next stage of the project. Have you had any thoughts on that?
Tonio, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. We know this concept of gamification, and we talk about this. And as part of our first idea of this app, which is only one of the other interfaces, human interfaces we can have, we know we need to reinforce the activity of documenting, and as you mentioned, to get feedback for something that you are creating, or so gamification is one of our ideas to implement in this. We still don't know how we incentivize the creators to document, because it will depend a lot on their user in our user research, and we still need to complete that part to know that. But yeah, we know that.
Thank you. I'm glad you're thinking about it. Yeah, that's great. And then if I have time, Magenta, for another question, I really like the fact that you've taken the time to look at the ISO standards for quality management systems and for labeling. There's international standards. So my question is potentially the sort of iconoclast in me that sort of wants to kind of challenge the status quo all the time. How useful were these standards? Were they, are they sort of, in some ways, standards can become a barrier to entry for local makers and local manufacturers to a market, because it's not properly labeled, because it's not made in a place that has an ISO 9001 QMS system certified. We aren't going to buy from you. Those can be barriers. Do you think that, I'm interested in whether you think that these standards might be locking us into outdated ways of working, or whether really they are still valuable from what you've understood of them to the sort of innovative technologies that we're using today in manufacturing?
Well, as you mentioned, standards can become a barrier, and we understand that. And we understand that in certain locations will be like impossible or not will be expensive to reach these standards. And in other scenarios will be just not useful at all. But this is our first approach to what it is right now, how we solve quality assurance right now. And that's why we take our research to understand a little bit of ISO, because we need to know what is made nowadays in order to innovate. And also, we understand that probably it will not be useful to use the default standard for labeling, but we want to have an understanding of what information is useful in a label. And not only for us, because these labels will be used probably and will be seen and used for other people outside the organization. So we want to be sure that someone outside the context will understand that information. I will find that useful.
And
Yeah.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, Andrew, I'd like to add on to that. From our first conversation, you suggested us to do like a research on how different industries are also dealing with this. And we all looked into medical, healthcare, food, and humanitarian aid industries. And we saw how there's ISO standards, but also these different standards. But something we really noticed was that all of these industries have come up with symbols which they use for defining various things, like how much is their usage, or what standards are being applied to them, or what's their life expectancy, sort of, or stuff like that. So I think we are sort of still exploring these ISO standards, and we still need to see which ones of these would actually abide by our solution, which we really decide on. But something we're definitely considering is that to definitely make it easy for the user, manufacturer, and all the stakeholders involved in the field ready organization to really, once the product is ready, recognize what are the risks and defects associated with it, or what symbols can be used to really let the user know that, yeah, this implies that, or stuff like that, sort of, and make it even more standardized and easy to use.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that the separation between labeling as an avenue to gather user feedback and labeling as an indicator of quality, I think is quite important, and it's useful to consider having both on a product. It is often achieved in everyday products by having the manufacturer name and some information about the manufacturer and how you can contact them. And then there is somewhere else a label or a stamp that you can put on it. And I think keeping those two separate is quite important. I think some of the challenges we're going to face as we roll out these innovations, and is the management of what those numbers and marks might be. Because of course, right now, anyone can put a kite mark, a CE mark on a product. Like, physically it can be done. You can just scratch it on with a pen or whatever. Like, it's kind of whether that means something is really the trick, and that's the means of verification that you're putting together. And I think that that make the real challenge you have ahead of you now is how you can make sure that for every item, whether it's something that will only ever be made once by one maker somewhere in the world, or whether it's something that is like a bucket is more sort of mass produced, how every single one will potentially have a different serial number, or some system like that that scales that big. I think that's going to be a really interesting challenge for what you're coming on to next.
Completely agree. And actually, just touching on the point you made there about anyone can scratch in a kite mark. I think that line of thinking was really what led us to this slightly left of field concept of actually inviting the user to do some of the quality testing, because we feel that that's something that's already done. Like, you buy if you buy a new television or something, there'll be a list of parts that you'd expect to receive in the box. And that is, in a way, a form of you performing quality control on the product that you've received. And so we were just wondering if we could stretch that a little bit further and develop sort of some really simple tests that users could perform just to ensure that the product they've received is a high quality product. Because that way you're taking the power out of the hands of the brands, as it were, and you're putting it in the hands of the person who cares most about the product working, which is the user. So that was what led us down. Now, I don't know whether we'll pursue that line of thinking, but I think that it's an interesting mindset to have. You know, if you're a hospital and you take delivery of like 100 little widgets or whatever, what if you just subject one or two of them to some easy, simple, guided testing? And that way, it doesn't matter who the manufacturer was, because regardless of their quality control systems, you have this fail-safe that allows you to determine, you know, whether it actually meets the standard, not whether the kite mark was just stamped on it willy-nilly. So that was, I guess, the thinking behind that. And yeah, I wanted to connect those thoughts, but yeah.
I like that a lot, and it shifts some of the power from the procurement department to the actual users of the product, which is often a big problem in the aid sector. But you know, the people who have to use the final products aren't necessarily the ones who buy them.
I'm sorry to have to cut off the conversation here, but we're going to transition to a little bit of Q&A with the last 5 minutes. Thank you so much to Andrew and Kat for the insight and feedback, and to the whole team for your contributions and discussion here. We mostly had some wonderful comments from the audience, but there were a couple questions in here, and part of some of these questions was how to get in touch and involved with this project. So I'm going to start out by, I can answer that by saying follow the team's project on hackaday.io by searching for HDP Dream Team Field Ready. You can easily find Misha, Tom, and Antonio's project and their work, and actually message them through there or comment on their project page there. I'm sure that they would love to hear from you all and have any sort of additional feedback or contributions from the broader audience out there. It was great to see people so excited by this project from the audience. So with that, I'm going to move on. One of the questions was, could you possibly sort of reverse engineer the ISO standards to see the thinking behind them and then take action on them? So we'll get started with that one.
Who wants to field this one? Misha, Tonio?
Okay.
Well, I can chip in a little bit.
I mean, I don't mind answering.
Cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting question.
Yeah.
I guess the heart of it is like, what was the thinking behind the creation of the standards that led to that set of rules? And maybe there are another set of rules that could still help maintain quality to the same degree without being the same standard. I guess that's what the questioner is asking. And I assume the answer, I guess, yes. I mean, I don't think ISO are a flawless institution. You know, no institution is without fault. And yeah, I think it's definitely worth, yeah, as Andrew pointed out, critiquing the standards and exploring both what they suggest, but also what they don't suggest. And sort of, yeah, I don't know if that quite covers it. Giovanni, you seemed like you had something to add as well. Go for it.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a couple of things. It's all about process repeatability, right? How we're able to repeat a process in a consistent way, both for manufacturing, but for quality assurance too. So when people are relying on a standard such as ISO for quality inspection, is essentially they're following a procedure. And while what you mentioned, Andrew, is really, really valid, the fact that those standards sometimes can keep people away, they can certainly be used as an inspiration for a simpler system, and a system that's adapted to the local people who are using them, local stakeholders, like the WhatsApp idea or the app opens so many possibilities, because you can have a bot guide you through the process. You don't even have to download all the information at once, but you can have step-by-step or section-by-section go through the product, and with a set of instructions, be sure that what you're using is safe.
And I'd like to add there that the process repeatability for us might be we make the item once in Fiji, 200 times in Bangladesh, 5,000 times in US Virgin Islands or whatever. I think it's and that's where some of what you were talking about in the culture of documentation and testing is really important. So I'm glad you've connected those things together. Thanks both. And there were great questions coming. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And I did want to also highlight, someone mentioned that it's simple and inexpensive to create an aluminum labeling system. It can be done with an Arduino and a nail to engrave, which I think is why even Kat was saying this is an exciting, there's some exciting potential around that. So I love to see that the community thinks so as well. All right, so we're just about to be out of time. Let me see if there was one or two last questions here. I think we're all good. I just want to reiterate that we would love to have community support through the IO page. You can directly communicate with the Dream Team through that page. You can comment your suggestions. You can see what ways you can get involved. This is all going to be an open source. It's an entirely open source solution in the spirit of Hackaday. And so we would love to have more people contributing and welcome any suggestions on that front. So I'll just reiterate that. And also want to let everyone know that we will have our next presentation with United Cerebral Palsy Dream Team at 12 noon Pacific time, so in just 20 minutes here. So we're gonna have to wrap this up. But just want to say one last time, thank you so much to all of our participants today and to the audience for being involved. And of course to our sponsors and our wonderful Dream Team and our panelists today. It takes everyone and everyone being enthusiastic about contributing to the solution, and we're really excited to see where this goes. Please follow along the Dream Team journey on Hackaday.io. Also follow along the broader Hackaday Prize, and you can follow us on socials on Hackaday, Design Lab, on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter to see updates on videos, articles, and resources, and also, of course, project content and progress all through those channels. So stay tuned and keep tuning in. We love to have you all here, and we'll see you in the next session at noon.
Thanks, everyone.